Okay, and we're live. Hello, guys. Adam, awesome that you are also a fellow Brightonian. That's wicked. Hopefully, uh, after we both got our Lamborghinis, we can take them for a drive around the seafront. Maybe that's a little bit ambitious with Cineworld stock, but who knows? Things seem to be going well this week, which is exciting news. So, the first bit of news that we're going to talk about, actually, welcome to live stream 16. Thank you for joining. If this is your first time here, we always like to have a whiskey while we talk about Cineworld stock, and there's a lot to talk about this week. Today I'm going to be attempting, I've put some things together to attempt to work out what we think the opening box office should be for Avatar 2 release, and then also I want to talk about, just want to see if the audio is working. We're live. It is. The audio's working. Everything is working straight out the gate. Oh, God, this is exciting. So please leave your questions in the comment section. I love to have you participating. And if you disagree with me on anything, let me know. Yeah, love to chat to you guys while I'm doing the stream. And Adam, so great to have a fellow Brightonian in the room. Right, so I'm going to have some Penderyn this week. This is a slightly nicer whiskey than I was having before. Yeah, this is one of my favourites, Welsh whiskey. Right, enough about the whiskey. Let's get into the stocks and shares. Let me have one sip and I'm going to get into this. Hi, Steve Gary, HJG. Right. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is Cineworld's Chinese opening weekend seems to be going, sorry, not Cineworld's, Avatar 2's opening weekend in China seems to be going really well, and I'm using that as a prerequisite to assume that it's probably going to go quite well in the UK as well. But there are no, I saw someone asking this on Reddit, there are no Cineworlds in China that I know of. Please feel free to correct me in the comments. As far as I'm aware, there are only Cineworld cinemas in Europe, Israel, and UK and America. America being the largest place, UK being the second largest, and then Europe and Israel being the smallest combined. And so, yeah, Cineworld, Chinese pre-sale tickets do not affect us, but they can be a good prerequisite for working out what the opening weekend is going to be like in the UK. And so, yeah, Avatar, The Way of the Water, is to clear over $200 million over Chinese opening weekend, which I can't tell if the person writing this article is high, because that sounds like a lot. And when we go into the other, I've put together, you can see here, I've got a little tab, box office figures, and I pulled together a few of the box office figures from the last year, and so that we can compare them and see what the opening weekends are like. 200 million opening weekend would be real tasty. So yeah, they also said it's one of the high, so this is the IMAX CEO. I've also bought shares in IMAX recently, just a small amount as a sort of, not a hedge, but I think Avatar 2 is going to be a big deal for the entire cinema industry, and IMAX was a way of having more exposure to cinema and Avatar 2's release, and without the risk of bankruptcy. So I think IMAX is actually a nice second hedge. However, it's not as deep value as Cineworld, but there's just significantly less risk there. So yeah, the IMAX CEO said it's one of the highest pre-sale levels we've ever seen, so I'm extremely excited about Avatar getting into China. So yeah, obviously it's great for IMAX that Avatar's in China, because I believe IMAX have cinemas screens there, but I haven't done deep, actually, you know what, I have absolutely no idea if IMAX is in cinema, so I'm not going to bullshit about that. I don't know if they're in cinema, I don't know what IMAX has screens. I've not done much research into IMAX. I just looked at their free cash flow and their debt and thought, you know, it actually looks like a good way to also have more exposure to Avatar 2's release, because IMAX is, that's one of those films, Avatar 2 is one of those films that I think a lot of people will pay extra to go see it in IMAX. Right, so also, without further ado, Raz Sandhu, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This isn't your article, but I made a short this week using the information that you put on Reddit, and I promised to shout out to you. So this whiskey's to you, Rags. Thank you very much for sharing the beautiful news that our CEO of Cineworld is not going to be going to an Israeli prison, Yeah, that's just one of the things you don't think you're going to have to say. But yeah, Mookie this week has been let off the hook, so to speak. The actual words from the court were Mookie's got a suspended prison sentence. What that means is that Mookie is basically Forum Film, which is the company that he owns. It distributes films in Israel, and I believe it distributed films to his cinema. And there's anti-monopoly laws that prevent him from prioritizing Forum Film over other distributors, and he violated those laws during the pandemic. And so, whatever you think of him doing that, it's not like it's not a crime in the sense that he murdered anyone. But it is a violation of anti-monopoly laws, and so yeah, they seem to have quite severe sentences for those. Imagine going to prison for 6 months because you prioritized your company over another company. But yeah, so believe it or not, Mookie was facing a prison sentence for that, and although it was very unlikely that he was actually going to be sentenced to prison, we now know with certainty that he is not going to prison. And so that is fantastic news. And yeah, so the suspended sentence, it sounds funny because it's suspended jail term. For those that don't know what suspended means, I can go to suspended prison sentence, get you the official Wikipedia definition, or Sentencing Council. Suspended sentences are custodial sentences where the offender does not have to go to prison provided that they commit no further offences and comply with any requirements imposed. So long as he follows the rules and doesn't commit any further offences in the same category as what he's just committed, he will not face any prison time. He has had to pay fines. Forum Film, which is not connected to Cineworld, it's not like a subsidiary or anything, it's a separate company, has to pay £150,000, and then Mookie himself also has to pay £20,000. So in the grand scheme of things, I think Mookie will be just fine, and so will Forum Film, I believe. But even if Forum Film collapsed, that wouldn't affect us at Cineworld shareholders at all. Okay, so that is the interesting news that Mookie, his prison sentence, that's one less thing to worry about. Didn't have a massive impact on the share price, but I don't think a lot of people actually expected him to go to prison. And even if he did, Cineworld would still have to turn free cash flow, and the Gerdinger family and the board of directors would still be in charge as the debtors in possession. So it's not like that news could have impacted the share price. It just would have been annoying to get at this period of time. So yeah, not a lot of movement in the price, but that's just we all like to hear that our CEO is not going to prison. Cineworld creditors Mole sale of, oh yeah, that also happened. Did that happen this week, or did we talk about that last week? We talked about that last week. The sale of Eastern European. The mulling of the sale was by the creditors, not the debtors that are currently in possession. You want to know more about that second article there, got to watch last week's episode. Okay, so the question today is, I think it's going to be months before we know how much Avatar actually makes. We're not going to know how much it's actually going to make in the first weekend. But looking at the box office figures today, these movies never make as much as their opening weekend. So the opening weekend needs to be massive. So even Top Gun, which was an enormous hit, it never reached the same heights as its opening weekend. So you can create a little bit of a projection after the opening weekend, because you know that the following weekends will never be as high as that one. So you sort of have a baseline as to how much money that film can make in a selected period of time. And so I just want to give you guys an idea of what would be a really good opening weekend and what would be a really bad opening weekend. Okay, so let's get into that. I'm going to open up, oh yeah, and this interesting article, report on Avatar: The Way of the Water projected clear $200 million over Chinese opening weekend. If we got that, that would be fantastic. James Cameron Avatar. There was an interesting bit in this article that is based on 185 to 200 million dollars is based on 70% of China's theatres remaining open. So that is factoring in a hefty amount of COVID closures as well. I thought that was interesting. Okay, so box office. Let's go open up Wakanda Forever, Top Gun Maverick, Black Adam, and Violent Night. And so let's start with, I'm not exactly sure where I should start with on this, but let's start with Black Panther, right? What you got here is this is a site called Box Office Mojo, and I don't know where it pulls its data from. And this isn't in any way financial data for Cineworld. I'm just using this as an indicator to see how well the films that Cineworld profits from are doing, and how well films are doing in general. It's just a good indicator while we don't have financials to go into at the current time to see how well Cineworld is doing. So what we've got is Black Adam and Black Panther came out recently. Top Gun came out in the middle of the year, and actually I'd like to open up one more just to get an idea of a film that did badly during that time, during the domestic box offices this year. Jurassic World Dominion, that would be a good one. World, there it is. I think that'd be a good final film. So let's go through these. Yeah, you've got on the right here, this is how many days it's been in the box office. So this is day one, Friday, and this is how much it made that day that it opened. It opened on a Friday. That could be relevant when we look at compare the others to see if they also opened on a Friday. But then you've got this, which is the cumulative amount it made. Okay, so its daily is 84 million. The second day was 56 million. The to date marker on the right here is 84 plus 56. And so, yeah, you've got the opening weekend of Black Panther was 84 million. Then the following weekend was, so you got Saturday, 56 million. Then you've got the following Saturday is 28 million. So you've got a sharp drop off on the second weekend. And then it goes down to 17 million. So you've got another 10 million that you're losing the next weekend. And this is just domestic. This isn't worldwide, by the way. So this is why the numbers might seem a bit smaller than you anticipate. But 17 million there. And you can see that the cumulative amount it's made there is 357 million domestically. And worldwide, so far, this film has made 771 million. But this is why I'm actually quite surprised, because when I went to look at Black Adam's figures, just how badly this film did. And actually it's made me a little bit concerned as a Warner Brothers Discovery shareholder. So I never intended to own Warner Brothers Discovery. I bought Discovery, which is a really good free cash flow business, and then wound up holding through their merger with Warner Media and thinking that it might be an interesting company. And looking at the market cap of my new shares, I thought actually it was fairly reasonable. But they're really struggling to free cash flow, and Black Adam really should have made a lot of money for them. And I can kind of understand why this film didn't do well, but it's actually a little hard to understand with, you know, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson being at the top of his career and this film getting modestly good reviews. But yeah, let's look at the financials. You've got on the opening weekend, it got 26 million. That is compared to Black Panther's 84 million. Now, Black Panther is a much better film, granted, but yeah, wow, 26 million. And then also let's compare that to Top Gun at the same time, which got double that, 52 million. So that's the star power of Tom Cruise, I guess, and the advantage of having a film that is perceived as being higher quality and more original, and why Hollywood need to make more original films. I think Paramount absolutely got this right. So I'm a bit annoyed about how clever you were on Top Gun, Paramount. But yes, so 52 million on the opening weekend. And what was remarkable about Top Gun is you've got the 38 million on the second weekend, but it just doesn't really slow down. So we got Black Panther. So we'll compare Black Panther and Top Gun now. So these are two films that did really well. Black Panther by no means is finished either. So, but yeah, so you've got Black Panther making let's go with Saturday, 56 million on the Saturday. The following Saturday, it made almost half that, pretty much exactly half that. And then you've got Top Gun, which made 38 million, so it made less on the weekend, but it made even more. It made more than Black Panther on the second weekend. And I found that really interesting. And it was the third weekend, it was almost at Black Panther's second box office weekend. And it just continued doing really consistent numbers. So the film doing consistently well is more important than the opening weekend. That's what I want to get at, is Top Gun, by day 31, so let's go down to, because that's where Black Panther is at the minute. Black Panther is at day 33, and it's made 411 million. Top Gun at day 33 had made 530 million. And then, so that's an indicator of where things are going to go, because it never makes more money generally than it did the weekend before. So it's only going to go downhill from here. So right now, you know that Black Panther is not going to make more than Top Gun did domestically ever. So its final result was worldwide 1 billion. And so this is what I mean, is the opening weekend in just one country was 52 million on Top Gun. And for Black Adam, the opening weekend was, also Black Panther, the opening weekend was 56 million. And Black Adam was 26 million. And let's just go to another film, Jurassic World. The opening domestic release was, was 59 million. So this articles that I'm reading are projecting that this film, Avatar 2, could potentially have, in one country alone, a 200 million opening weekend. So by the way, these are dailies. So what you've got to be doing is you've got to add up the Friday, Saturday, and the Sunday, I believe. So you've got 56 million plus. So where's the opening weekend? There's the opening weekend. 145 million opening weekend. 126 opening weekend. 181. So yeah, we definitely do want to see a $200 million opening weekend. That's what we're looking for next week. And I think we also have, it bodes well for Cineworld that England are now out of the World Cup. So I'm very sad to see England knocked out, and we do need people to show up all across Europe. So people will be all over Europe still watching the World Cup. But yeah, I think it bodes well that we are not in it, and that will hopefully mean higher box office turnout for Avatar 2. Although when I actually looked at it, when I thought about it, I dived into the numbers after I did the stream, and I actually don't think the World Cup affected it that much. It was just the fact that every week from Saturday to Saturday, you see a sharp drop off, and Saturday to Monday, you see a sharp drop off. So the World Cup started on a Monday, and I think that's why we saw a significant drop when the World Cup started. But I don't think it's had an enormous impact on cinema. But we might see after the World Cup ends that Violent Night starts picking up, although I think that'll have more to do with the fact that people are coming home for Christmas and they want to do something with their friends. I expect Violent Night to do quite well Christmas Eve, but maybe Avatar 2 will steal all the sales from that. But I really want to see this film. I want to see how entertaining it could potentially be. Let's see if there are, by the way, Rotten Tomato scores for Avatar 2 yet from Avatar 2, The Way of the Water, Way of Water. Interesting, 81% tomato meter from critics. I thought it'd be higher than that. Let's just go see Top Gun. Because Top Gun was like crazy, 96%. So we aren't getting that 96% from critics. It'll be incredibly interesting to see what the audience think of this. So do we think, I'm interested to know your thoughts on this. If you could leave that in the comment section, what you think the Avatar 2 will hit. So you've got Jurassic World Dominion, a terrible film with low ambition, poor script, reaching 1 billion worldwide, right? This year, Jurassic World Dominion reached 1 billion worldwide, and that was an awful film, okay? And it had nowhere near as much hype as Avatar 2, and it was just terribly put together. Okay, and then you've got Top Gun, a really good film, but it's not attached to any other. Like the Top Gun 1 came out years ago. No one was seeing this because like they had to go see the sequel. They went to see it because it was Tom Cruise and it was a really ambitious film and it was a great script, a really strong story, a good script and a really strong story. And that made 1.5 billion, but it doesn't have nearly like the level of hype that Avatar 2 has. Not close. Come on, let's be real. Avatar 2 has at least twice the hype of Top Gun Maverick could ever have had, because Top Gun Maverick was just pulled out of thin air, and if anything, people are very fatigued with the idea of rebooting things. So I actually think that makes it less appealing in some ways. But anyway, so Top Gun Maverick got 1.5 billion. Black Panther so far, only 30 days in. Remember that we're looking at things being about 200 days in, and this is 30 days in, has so far reached 771 million. So Black Panther will get to 1 billion. Like, it's going to do better than Jurassic World Dominion. The only reason it might not to get there is if Avatar 2 is such a success that everyone goes to the cinema to see that and not Avatar 2. So, and then finally Black Adam did so badly. Like, look at that. That's been in the cinema 54 days. It might have even been pulled from the cinema. December 13. It might have been pulled from the cinema now. It got 389 million worldwide. So that is why you're seeing these headlines from Warner Brothers Discovery. I've actually half made a video for that, but things have changed so much since I made that video about Warner Brothers Discovery's debt, because they've got 50 billion in debt, but it's super low interest debt. Only 14% of it isn't fixed. And so the rest of it is fixed interest, and you can actually see when they've got to pay this debt back. And I thought that would be a benefit, but actually it looks like even though it's low interest debt, it's just a lot for them to pay, and they're currently not free cash flowing, which is worrying when you see stuff like this, like Black Adam doing like that, and they're feeling like they have to reboot the entire DC universe, which might be the best thing for them to do, but it's going to be expensive. So yeah, Warner Brothers Discovery, you guys have a big mountain to climb right now. England out. Share price seems very range bound at the moment. Would you consider trading it between 4.4p and 5p? Of course. I mean, I would buy it all the way up to, my average is 30p, and I'm just trying to be rein myself in from being too ambitious, to putting too much into one stock. Warren Buffett's rule to investing, I subscribe to a lot of Warren Buffett's philosophies, and his chief one is to never lose money, and rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. And I really feel as though I can't tell whether I'm crazy or I'm just like, Warren Buffett's had many instances, he says that everyone is going one way, saying one thing, and you have to have conviction and know what you believe in and bet big on that. And that's what I feel like I'm doing with Cineworld. I feel like I have I'm just using my conviction and trying to just see what I believe in and the facts that I can see and understand. And so I am putting more, I'm considering putting even more into Cineworld. I believe in it. I mean, it's easily worth, if it doesn't go bankrupt, but obviously you've got to price risk in somehow, and that's really hard. But if it doesn't go bankrupt, it's worth, and it doesn't do dilution, in my opinion, the entire company is worth 3 billion. I've talked about this many times. In fact, actually, I've said it's worth 7 times revenue, and so I believe it's worth 20 billion. But that would be a higher price to earnings than than companies like Apple and stuff like that. And the reason that those have a high price to earnings is because they're so unlikely to go bankrupt. They have so little risk factored in. So yeah, if you factor in risk into the price, for some people, this even 2p is too expensive because they believe that it's absolutely going to go bankrupt. So it's worth 0. To me, I believe that the risk of bankruptcy is probably somewhere around, it's really hard to say before Avatar 2 comes out. It's complete speculation, and it's not really worth very much to speculate. And I do have a link to an episode where I sort of try and price risk. but yeah, it's definitely under 50%. I think it's substantially less than 50% the likelihood, and so I think the value of the business should be around 1 billion. I think that's where it needs to go to, and so 1 billion divided by 60 million, 1,000 divided by 60. So I think it's going to 15 multiply if it has no dilution, is my opinion. So of course I think that it's tradable at these volumes, at these prices. It's just whether you want to put more of your money, if you want to risk more of your money on a stock that could potentially go to zero. And so that's just the uncomfortable fact when your company is currently in Chapter 11. That's the risk that you take on. Extremely high reward, but extremely high risk. So that's what I'm trying to work out, is how much cash I should allocate to this stock. But yes, I would buy more at 4.4 if I didn't feel as though I already had a substantial amount in the stock. But that's for you to decide. You shouldn't be putting money into this stock if you are afraid of losing it, because really, if you're afraid of losing money, I think you're going to get very, very mediocre gains in the stock market long term. That's a Charlie Munger philosophy. And then that's an actual quote from him. And also, I think that there's enough you can gain from doing things like buying index funds. They're absolutely brilliant. Index funds are really great. And the beautiful benefit of index funds is you get exposure to the stock market. Your savings aren't going down with inflation, they go up with inflation. And then you can focus on actually creating real value in your day-to-day life. So actually getting your income up. And then, sorry, I'm not really talking about Cineworld this second, but the main thing in life is actually you will make far more from incremental increases in your income than you will from making better performance in your stock. Income is where you make the most of your money. So if you get better at your job, or if you get better at creating passive income streams like what I'm attempting to do now, then you will outperform your stocks. Obviously, your income is far higher than your stock portfolio at the minute, I presume. It will probably take about 30 years for your portfolio to beat your annual income, if it ever does. So yeah, you kind of want a portfolio that you are not watching too much, so that you can actually focus on growing your income, which is where you'll actually you'll build your wealth the fastest. Anyway, any questions? Can you... Oh, we're at 30 minutes, by the way. Please leave questions if you want them answered. Remember, guys, can you proportion how much of the revenue will go to Cineworld? That's very hard. That's very, very hard, because, and it would be kind of pointless, because you'd also have to work out how much people are spending on popcorn and stuff like that. I'm going to switch to full screen. Actually, so you'd have to work out how much people are going to spend on popcorn, and I think I've got it here in one of these little tabs. I have how much they actually make from box office sales and from popcorn. So if you could work out how much of one release went to Cineworld, obviously it's worldwide releases or all of that. If you could work out a sort of average, and then you could go to the first day presentation, and then of that average you could apply, you could times it by or divide it by 0.3, which would give you the margin of how much they make on popcorn. I want to try and find their first day presentation. That's what I'm looking for right this second. First day presentation should be here, because I believe in this presentation they have how much they make on popcorn. So I'll take a look at that. Not popcorn alone, but like, you know. So yeah, box office, retail, other, advertising and other, that's revenue by operating segment. So, and this is the regions. So this, they post all over the place, but not a lot of people have seen this. So that is what they make from box office. Half of it comes from box office, the other half comes from popcorn and Coke. So even if you could work out how much of the box office numbers are coming in from Avatar, you won't know how much is coming from popcorn and Coke. And so that will be a considerable amount of it. Now, I've seen people kind of worried that Cineworld like what happens to cinema in a recession. I can tell you that historically what happens to cinema in a recession is cinema is generally fine, and that is because it's not people like us that are the main revenue segment for cinema, it's families. And I talk about this a bit on the Reddit forum, but families are the main reason that Cineworld makes money, and that parents taking their kids, and they do it for birthdays and stuff like that because it's obvious and easy entertainment for kids. Kids sit down for a bit, the parent can have a rest as well. And what they found out that what happened during a recession is when things are going well, when markets are doing well and everyone's making money, families will go to the cinema and then they will go do something after. So they'll go to the kids' favorite restaurant. But what happens in a recession is they will cut out the restaurant. So the restaurants get hit badly in a recession, but cinema, parents still want to entertain their kids, they still want to provide for their kids, and they will definitely prioritize a birthday party for a kid and taking it to the cinema, which is where cinema gets most of its revenue from. So although cinema will be hurt a little bit in a recession, parents will still show up, and so actually they are not nearly as affected. And if anything, cinema during a recession is seen as higher value because, or not higher value, but the alternatives where parents would take their kids' activities like paintballing or go-karting or to a restaurant all become comparatively more expensive, while cinema, because of its low overheads, actually tend to, even though I know cinema seems expensive right now, but I promise you, to a family, all the other types of activity that you'd want to do with a kid are also looking much more expensive. And so, yeah, cinema is seen as good value during a session to entertaining your family. And that's why a lot of films shoot for PG releases. So like Deadpool had a PG release because families are where you get the money. People like us, unfortunately, our generation, will stream things illegally and all sorts of stuff like that. But the family still turns up because they want to entertain their kids and have a rest. I think the parent, more than anything, just wants to sit in darkness for a minute and not have to deal with kids. I think that's probably one of the big appeals of cinema. So, right guys, I think that's all from me. Thank you very much for joining. There will be an opportunity to leave questions in the comment section of this video, and I will answer any comments left on my YouTube videos or on Reddit or anywhere else. Okay, while it could be moon or bust, to the moon. I'm going to hold on for 1 second to make sure that you get the end of the video, because it cuts me off early. So I'm just going to sit here awkwardly for a minute just to make sure that you get everything I said this time. It's a bit awkward just sitting here knowing that you're watching, or like maybe no one sees this, who knows. Okay, I feel like it should be over now. Okay, there you go, I can see the cheers, so I know that you guys are seeing the end of this episode. I'm hoping that I'm clicking the right end stream button, so you might see all of this. This could be embarrassing. All right, I'm seeing a few more cheers now. Good stuff. Okay, have a great evening. Au revoir.